Giuseppe Pino, a name you may not have heard of unless you are a jazz aficionado. In the jazz world, he is probably the most famous of photographers. Essentially, his story is one of a fanboy who used his photography to access his heroes and became a master photographer in the process, yet he doesn't even have a Wikipedia page. In this video, we'll briefly look at his life and work, and at the end I'll point you to some further resources if you want to know more. Pino was born in Milan in 1940 of mixed European heritage. He died in September 2022, back in Italy, having spent a large part of his career in the United States. Unfortunately, it is very difficult to find Pino's work online. His archive is housed in the Pinacoteca di Brera in Milan, though used books are available online. Interestingly, if you search for Pino's bibliography, you will also find his discography, as some of his most famous books are accompanied by a jazz soundtrack on CD. He started his photographic career, so it is said, in anger. After attending a jazz concert as a teenager with his friend who took some photographs but refused to share, he bought his own camera and started attending every performance that he could to capture images of his idols. Pino seems to have grown his photography as a typical fanboy who loved the subject, jazz, far more than the photographs themselves, and would happily allow festivals etc. to use his images to grow their audience. During the 60s, he was working as a photojournalist for Panorama magazine before in the early 70s moving to the United States, and returning again to Italy in the 80s, by which time he had become a sought-after photographer in the advertising and fashion space, but jazz was clearly always his main love. The images I've shown you so far have all been those that I could find online, but I suspect that they do not do his printed work justice. One of his most famous images here is a mobile phone snapshot from one of my books. Look at the beautiful blue tones, so well thought out to go with Miles Davis's clothes. This is no snapshot, yet the versions you will find online tend to be the more grainy looking black and whites or poor reproductions of the colour, as most of them are online only as they're being sold at auction houses. It is said that Pino was no fan of the snapshot, yet some of his greatest images clearly come from the fact that the subjects are relaxed with seeing him as one of them, and in that way they take on a wonderful snapshot feel. He was also clearly a fan of the surreal. He wants you to look at Miles Davis's eyes, so he'll just cut off the rest of his face. If you want to learn more about Pino and see his work in print, I would suggest you try to get a hold of two books. Firstly, the 2002 Jazz My Love, and secondly, from 2014, The Way They Were, Portraits and Stories from the 20th Century. As a bonus, there is also the 50th anniversary book for the Monterey Jazz Festival, which contains many images from Pino not available elsewhere. I'll place links in the description below to these books online. I'll leave you now with some more of Pino's images, and at the end of the video, if you like this, please feel free to give it a like and a subscribe. It can only help me grow the channel. And if you really liked it, there'll be a similar video on another artist at the end for you to watch.